Are we ready to start? If I see if this works this time? Yep. We got a red light, so. Okay, I'm gonna call to order the, Casson Park Board for, August 20th, 2024. I need approval of the June minutes, or if there's any additions or corrections.
I'll make that.
Make that motion, okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carried. I think what we'll do quick is just go around and introduce ourselves to our crew out there. So that way, at least you know some of the names on the board if you haven't met us before, so. Plus, these are all new faces to me too, so I'm not sure who they are.
That's your start, Greg.
Okay, Greg Kubal, chairman, I guess, of the park board, so.
Ben Langen, in charge of Park and Streets.
John Knutson, been on the board for about 2 years.
Matthew Clemens, started like in November, I guess.
Somewhere around there.
About a year, yep.
Yeah, yep. Chuck Coleman, I've been on the park board for about 6 years, I think, maybe a little.
Is that 6 or 60?
6.
Just checking. And then before that as well, so.
Yeah, and then before that, that's
Second
city
stint.
council, yeah.
I'm
No.
Tim Bishop, the city administrator.
Thank you, Tim.
I'm Ashley Shirkus. I'm the assistant, or administrative assistant for the Parks Department.
So, and Ryan, a couple others aren't here, so. I guess since everybody said how long they've been here, I've been here pushing 30 years on the park board, so. And I noticed that with a bunch of cars that were out there, a bunch of for sale signs got slapped on by somebody walking by. So if you got a car missing, hopefully they left the cash. It's good to see a full parking lot outside, or a fuller one, so. Okay, thank you. So let's go to new business. We got pickleball. So.
Pass those around. I am Ann McElmurray. I live over on 4th Place Northwest in Casson. I've been a resident of the Casson community for 22 years, 23, 20, it will be, actually just turned 23 years. So I am here representing our pickleball community, Casson Manorville Pickleball. We do have a Facebook page, Casson.Manorville, or -Manorville Pickleball, that you can go on, request access to it. We do have it locked down so we can't get all the spammers on it and stuff. Our goal tonight is to compel the park board and the city of Casson to add 3 more fenced-in pickleball courts at Lions Park, so there'd be sufficient court space for those that want to play, and or completely refurbish the North Park ones so that it has a better surface and adequate fences to those courts. We will review some national and local statistics about pickleball, the current court setup, and demonstrate how improving pickleball courts in Casson will also improve our community engagement. As you're aware, there's currently 2 pickleball locations in Casson. First, we have Lions Park, where there's a fenced-in court that is heavily utilized from 6 in the morning until evening hours. And then there's also painted lines on the basketball court. Those that is getting used this summer, if somebody brings their own net, as long as there's nobody else playing on the basketball court, on that court. Our group, which there are a few people here, we've been utilizing that court. It helps some, but you still have to like really chase after the balls when they're there, or if there's somebody playing basketball, you can't utilize it. Then there's the North Park ones. There's currently 4 courts with sport court surface. Sport court surfaces are known to have high and low spots and also create fall hazards. This is nationally known. I've seen it mentioned on the pickleball forums and stuff. It's not a good surface for the experienced players and stuff. Also, it is a hazard. There's some pretty big trip hazards on that court if you've not been up there and played on it. Additionally, the service line is close to the tennis nets. We had one person almost go head over, the tennis court, or the tennis net last year when they were going back for a ball. And there's also having to chase the balls because there's not the fencing as well. The one good thing about the North Park is that there is lights, as long as you know where the switch is to turn them on and off. Also, portable nets are used on that court. They are put out by the park staff or the pool staff in the morning, so they may not be there when some of us like to play, like at 6. And they're put away early evening, and I know some people have commented already on Spotted and Casson or whatever, that one night they got there and the nets were down, they wanted to go play and they were down, so that is another aspect to that one. Manorville Park Board is in the preliminary stages of possibly adding 2 courts. We're going to meet with them next week to hear more about what their plans are and see if there's any help we can give or input we can give to them as well. If you read or watch anything, you're hearing a lot about pickleball. Nationwide, the sports has increased about 87.5% year over year. Everybody, you're hearing about it. You're also hearing about more injuries, but that's because there's more people playing. And it's not just the 20-year-olds, the 30-year-olds. We have people playing from teenagers up until they're 80, 90 years old playing. I also play, we play sometimes in Rochester on the wintertime. We play with a guy who has Parkinson's. But it's a great sport for him. It's getting him moving. Pickleball community, our Casson Manorville Facebook page has more than doubled in the last couple months. We're up to 135 members right now on our page. We threw out a survey, and the results from the survey are in your packet. So you can see the questions we asked. We had 57 respondents to that. Of the 57 people, 60% of those are playing 2 to 4 times a week. And they're playing for at least 1 to 2 hours. So that's quite a bit of time that people are playing. We have people that are on that page and also in our group and also in the indoor sessions that come from other areas as well, from Kenyon, Racine, Casson, Manorville, Hayfield, Byron. In the indoor sessions, we even have people who come from Rochester once in a while to play because Rochester's full, Byron's full, and stuff, and they hear, oh, Casson has one, let's see if we can get into theirs if we can. For the last 3 years, Community Ed has had indoor sessions. We've had 86 unique people enrolled in those sessions. Of that, we've already outgrown the elementary school gym. They've now moved us to the middle school gym, so we can have 5 courts there. We have a limit of 36, and then there's usually a waiting list. And that doesn't even include the people that will go and see that the class is full and there's a waiting list and don't sign up for the waiting list. So obviously the need, the want is there for people to play. So if we can get more courts, our hope is that we can maybe do some leagues with co-ed, women's, men's, maybe a youth league. We know that we have retired people that like to play during the day. They're currently going to Dodge Center to play. Dodge Center has 2 tennis courts that they've lined for pickleball courts. They do have to chase the ball a little more. Not quite as bad as North Park and stuff. They just take a bucket of balls with them, but they do play during the day. They'd like to have more enclosed courts and stuff, and I think once it gets out there more, there'll probably be more people joining them to play as well. We'd like to do a Festival in the Park tournament. Right now, with North Park, it's not adequate enough to do a tournament up there. What a great way to get our community involved in it. We could do we could do co-ed, women's, men, seniors, and even a youth league if the youth leagues are starting to hopefully grow a little bit. Rochester's starting to try to do some programs with adding youth pickleball lessons and things like that, so we're hoping that takes off. But it's not just a game, it's also a social aspect of it. We're hoping that with this information, you guys consider putting that in your future budgets. But we'd also like to invite you guys to come play with us. We, right now, are set up, we're kind of trying to play every Wednesday. We have like a mini league going at Lions Park. And we invite you guys to come play with us either tomorrow night or next Wednesday night. Come see what it's about. Bring your family with. we'll work you in. We'd like to have you, right, guys?
Sure.
Come see what it's about. So, questions?
So you're playing in the gym, middle school, all year round?
Just in the wintertime.
Just in the wintertime, just like volleyball?
Yeah, yes, Wednesday night volleyball. Well, you know that, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so we play Mondays, Thursdays because volleyball's on Wednesdays, so they pushed us to Thursdays.
High school has 2 gyms, any possibility of trying that?
Paula? Hi.
Hi.
My name's Paula Cast, and I've lived in Casson now, close to 40 years. My husband and I went to Community Ed in 2021 and asked if we could get a pickleball program going. When we first started this, we had 6 people sign up, and now we're turning people away right and left. I spoke with Community Ed today about their recollection last year was over 30 teenage people inquired about pickleball and they turned away because it's an adult Community Ed class. So we aren't even touching the surface of the interest in this sport through the Community Ed. But yeah, right now we just run a fall and winter session. We've moved, like Ann said, from the elementary school to the middle school. But gym space, I don't know if any of you have had kids in sports and whatnot. It's a struggle, you know. So we've asked for more, and
Yeah, I was trying to work with Community Ed last year to let us be in it early morning at 6 a.m. And she tried, but they couldn't get it to go, so some of us are driving down to Hayfield to play at 6 a.m. In the wintertime. So, yeah, there's definitely the need out there, people wanting to play. It keeps everybody active. When I go to my doctor, I tell them play pickleball, they're like, keep playing. So, yeah.
I think we've known there's been a really huge interest for quite a while.
There's actually,
So we're trying.
in the Dodge County paper, one of the guys who had given us some information said that there's actually somebody that filed a doing business as in the Dodge County Independent, some pickleball business out on County Road 34. So it sounds like they must be gonna do some sales or something of pickleball equipment and stuff. Not sure. There's a guy in Byron that has a shed. He's now added 2 courts to his shed, and he's doing lessons and selling paddles and stuff out there too, so.
Well, I don't have any questions, just more my comment is, you know, as the pickleball came around, I'm saying it was like 5 years ago maybe, is that about right, when it really started, what's pickleball?
It's been around since like 1965 or even before that.
Or as
yeah.
it started to be a little more, you know, what's pickleball, now there's gonna be an Olympic, or there's tournaments that these pros are sitting in and start seeing on TV. The one that we have up there at Lions Park now, you know, we probably should have had it a couple years ago, but time, space, money to do it right, you know, I'm 101% with, we know there's a good demand, and the board, I think, here knows it too, for if, you know, the other 3 are here, they could vouch for it too, is, you know, we need more courts. You know, when we built one, we probably should have built 2. But it wasn't in the budget, so let's at least get 1 in, and knowing the demand and the use, you know, you hate to, in my case, you hate to take something away, like, I don't wanna say this wrong, whether it's on the mic or recorded, it's gonna be, but I don't wanna take a tennis court away, because you don't see it being hardly used, and then put probably 3 pickle courts, or, because we have 2 tennis courts up there, however many that fits, but then you've had something for so long that's been there, so why are you taking this away from us? Almost like, or a volleyball court with the sand volleyball. It doesn't get used as much, as I think, as a pickleball would, but, you know, great spot for a pickleball court, or 2. But then you get people, why are you taking a sand volleyball court away? So we always have to find a spot to put something and not replace something and lose something. That's the biggest challenge, probably, or the second biggest challenge, but the biggest challenge is funding. You know, you could put them almost anywhere, but it's, you know, the funding and to do it right. You just don't put up a court and no fencing, you just don't. If I remember right, when we built the one up at Lions Park, they put the asphalt in, but we had to tear it out because it wasn't crowned properly. so they had to, I don't know if it's torn, but they had to redo that surface because it wasn't crowned to be...
Yeah, we could probably
That's
follow
where-
it. That's why the balls, like, roll underneath the fence, and you may have seen that there's now noodles underneath
And this-
part of it.
Okay, and this is where, when Ron was here, it's like, you know, we thought we had it done, but before they'd come stripe it, whoever had to certify it, nope, it doesn't have the crown for the water drainage and stuff, so it had to be resurfaced. Again, brand new. So, you know, it's just, you just don't put up a slab and say, here you go, obviously. But I totally, you know, love to see whether it's, you know, the seniors, almost seniors, you know, the middle age. Great to see the youth coming in. I think that they're realizing probably a little less running and just as much exercise and just as big of a challenge to beat your, you know, partner.
There's families that come
So-
up there with their kids, too, of all ages,
Yep.
and stuff to play, too, so.
So I totally hear where you're coming from. It's just, you'll probably hear a little bit of information on what it costs to, you know, to put one or two, or where do we put it? You know, and then it also plays in the case of all the other things we wanna do in a park, playground modulars and stuff that you still gotta take care of as well, but, you know, where's our need, where's our...
The nice thing about North Park and also Lions Park is that you don't wanna put a pickleball court in close to houses, because you're gonna get neighbors complaining. Like in Rochester, I know that right now, their biggest area is Cook Park, and the neighbors complain if they play too early in the morning.
Due to noises.
Correct.
Yep.
So,
But we have plenty of space.
correct.
You know, and you think you have all this grass, but some of that becomes soccer field, and you can't take a pickleball court and put it in the edge of a soccer field, and then you start losing soccer stuff, which is, you know, probably a bigger demand than football for kids' program, so it's, so I totally, you know, 100% wish somebody would, you know, say, here's a couple $1 million city of Casson, put in some pickleball somewhere, but...
400,000, Brookings, South Dakota got as a anonymous benefactor, and they're putting 8 courts in with lights, the whole works then.
Can anything be done to like the North Park one to make it more suitable within reason for pickleball? Because I look at what we have at Lions Park today is probably anywhere from 50 to 80,000 to do that exact same court next to it.
That court is not good to play on.
At Lions?
Oh, at Lions, Lions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take our good Lions one.
Yes, Lions.
But so, like, to build that exact court next to it, like, to add another one, you're looking at probably another 50 to 80,000 rough number, you know. Is there anything that, like, we can do at North Park to make that usable within reason? I mean...
I think you'd have to get a new surface. Yeah, that's the biggest thing, that surface is horrible.
Sure.
Yeah, like you hit the ball and usually it bounces up pretty good and stuff, it just dies. That, and you can go and you can see the high and low spots where somebody's going after a ball, they're gonna probably end up going and tripping and breaking an ankle or something, so.
And there's no nets up there, no fencing. I'm sorry.
There's only fencing on the north and south at North Park, and it's
Of
quite
the
a ways
tennis-
away from the tennis courts, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So you're,
You know, I envision, but I don't know if it's practical, but when you have softball fields like youth softball or girls softball versus, you know, they always had the outfield fence, which is a removable or breakaway fence. It's an inexpensive way to put up something from the ball thrower with, you know, as I think, and probably shouldn't have mentioned it anyways, but now somebody's gonna lean on that and it's gonna collapse, so down somebody else goes, so it's not the right type of fencing to put.
yeah,
Stop the ball,
so
so.
a lot of the, like where they have 4 courts or 6 courts together, you will see like 3/4 height, fences. So the ball normally won't go over unless they're hitting it pretty high. So that's what they use for the dividers, is like probably fencing like this tall between them. They have that at a couple of the different places.
Right, so it's obviously we don't have to go as high, but you still have something to
Right,
stop the ball
correct.
on a
Normal basis
typical,
and stuff.
normal, out of bounds, or couldn't reach it, so it's...
Yep, and then they'll have just like a gate to get in between the fences, so like if you wanna go play on court 2 or court 3, you can do that.
So, you know, and therein lies our challenges, where would we put, you know, besides at the Lions Park, add one next to it, be nice to have a site, 2 of them added next to it, and there's probably space,
You could probably do 3 there.
you know,
Easily.
so in that case, 3 total courts, yeah, so if you...
So you have 4 total.
F4. You know, at, let's say minimum $50,000 a piece, that's $150,000, and, lighting out there probably becomes a little bit of an issue, so you gotta get some more light poles out there and electricity, and, so it's, you know.
Can we ask for one thing that probably doesn't cost a lot out at Lions Park? A garbage can by the pickleball courts. Right, guys? Garbage can? Well, I mean, people leave stuff, we're picking it up and throwing it in there and whatnot and stuff, but yeah, it'd be nice to have a garbage can by the pickleball court.
That's very feasible. I mean, would you guys entertain other locations for pickleball? I mean, if it's feasible as far as, you know, more cost effective for the city?
Oh, yeah, yeah. But you just be careful that it's not by a lot of houses, so we, yeah.
Well, and that's the other side of things where, you know, it sounds like you'll go anywhere.
Well,
As long as there's a road, a place to park, so it's,
yeah,
you know, and then we get into the handicap accessible, the ADA accessible, that's, gets to be, you know, depending where we put it, now you have to have the wheelchair accessible to the courts, so these are some of the stuff that, yeah, I guess that is another fee that you may or may not understand that becomes an expense, why it goes from $50,000 to $70,000 or something.
yeah, yeah. We do know that there are some grants out there that you can apply for. Minnesota DNR has grants. I saw just in the last year, community, I think, was awarded $150,000 that they could use for pickleball courts. There's a couple different ones for the Minnesota state that you can apply for and get. Brookings, they also got a Walmart grant. I don't know if that'd be something, maybe we can see if we can get Mayo Clinic to kick in some, because Mayo Clinic hasn't kicked in a lot in Dodge County, even though we have their family medicine practice.
No, I back you on that comment.
I've addressed it a few times,
So,
with HR, so,
thank you for addressing it. I wish
Yeah.
they had understand more, but
yeah,
not them, so.
so.
So you guys have like a regular committee and you meet?
We do not yet. We've
Okay.
talked about possibly doing something like that, but we have not gotten
Because
into
you were
the
talking about
negotiation.
grant writing and everything, so if you can get together, work with somebody at the city and see what happens from then on.
See if we can get some grants. That might be good.
And that's another thing that I don't have to deal with, but, you know, what the city does, you know, we're always looking for free money or money available from someplace. I don't wanna call it free, because nothing's free, but
Right.
somebody's gotta pay for it, it's gotta come from somewhere, but, you know, obviously, funding, you know, like in your guys' case, you know, to help build other courts in the city. You know, do you guys have any fundraising or any funds? Probably not, because you're not an organized organization, but, you know, somebody's gonna say, I'll throw in $400 here or $200 there to help build it, even though it becomes the city's, not yours, but, you know, that'll be another comment that would be made, I'm sure, by someone here.
Yep.
So I'll just make it, because just like when we put in the skateboard park up at Lions Park, we made the kids go out and, you know, sell some stuff to raise some money, and by God, if the kids didn't come up with, you know, more than what we thought they'd come, saying, we really want to be able to have some rails and stuff to keep us off the streets and out of businesses' parking lots, so
Yeah.
just throwing it out there too, so. But yeah, you know, challenge number one, dollars, challenge number two, and I don't think it's a big challenge, is where would we put two courts at least? You know, I think the next build we would do, I wouldn't suggest on this board, and I probably should have said something, or I did something 3 years ago when we put that one, it's like, if you're gonna build one, we should build two. Well, we only have money for one, so let's get one started and see where it goes. But obviously, if you got one, make it for two, somehow find the money, and that, you know, gets back into the city budget and, you know, what we're allocated for, so.
Yeah, and Casson's not shrinking any, they're just growing, so.
Nope, so I feel it, so I feel for you. Thank you guys for
Okay.
coming here as well. So is anybody else on the board comments, or? Yes.
Bill Thiebel, been in Casson for 30-some years probably. In my opinion, I think the north part, if just get rid of the sport court and resurface that and paint your tennis lines, paint the pickleball lines, paint them so, and paint it like a pickleball court in that section. I think if you went that, you've got the location. I think you can get 4 pickleball courts in there. Just you're gonna have to do something about being able to get the pickleball nets to stay there. Now, Byron, we painted 6 courts at the tennis courts in Byron on 2 of their courts. They have 4 tennis courts, and we painted 6 courts on the 2 of them. And we just leave the tennis court, the pickleball net out. It is getting hard on them after a year of this. So probably go through nets a little bit quicker, but you buy 7 nets for probably $100 or so. We just leave them out, put weights on them so they don't blow away, and then when you come, sometimes they're set up, sometimes you have to move and set them up. But I think that, in your space and money-wise, but that's probably your best bet. If you could resurface that tennis court for both tennis and pickleball, and just paint the lines for both courts, put up some new tennis nets, and then new pickleball nets that can put on and remove, but leave them there. Or people can bring their own, but I think that's your best location and space, I think.
Originally, when we got like the mobile pickleball nets, the fear was vandalism. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of vandalism at both parks. It died down at North Park this year, and those nets get beat up. So just to put in perspective, you know, the cheaper mobile nets are, I would say, $300 a net. The next step up is $500 for maybe a little bit more durable. And I do expect that we would have to replace them every couple of years, but it's just like I don't want to throw money away.
Right.
And I'm not opposed to trying to leave them out. You know, next year we're going to order some new nets and see how it works leaving them out. And if it doesn't work, then we gotta keep doing what we're doing. Right? It's hard to, you know, you're just throwing money away at that point. You know, and as far as, you know, I can't. What's your guys' like time frame? You know, realistic on trying to do more courts?
Well,
This fall?
We don't want them next week.
Okay, well, this fall, we'll stretch that far. Bill, just a comment, we did look at resurfacing the tennis courts. And Tim could vouch for me on this, but for us to resurface that, we gotta dig out the base as well. And it got to be very expensive. If you're gonna do it, you gotta do it right, or it's gonna crack in 2-3 years again too. So that was one of our looks, prior to or as of the Lions Park saying, how can we get more courts? And that's why we got that temporary surface on the tennis courts. Now at least it's a somewhat of a fix. We know it's got dead spots and that's some little bit of hazards, but it's, if you take that away and take a second look, you're like, holy cow, put that back down. I don't want to see what's underneath it. But we did look at the cost to dig out, resurface. It wasn't just a, you know, reclaim the top, dig it off and reclaim the top and put a new 3 inches down or 2 inches down. It was, we gotta go deeper in that area, which got to be expensive. So, you know, visually wise, yes, it'd be simple, but monetarily wise, you know, we could almost put a new court or 2 courts somewhere. And here's the case, how do you take a tennis court away from somebody? And that's kind of, people still play tennis, you know, so then they can say, well, where's our tennis court at? Now you gotta build us one. Well, let's kind of get you temporary, so, but, you know, that did cross the board, and that did cross our mind, and trying to find the best of both worlds to satisfy a little bit of each. But thank you for mentioning that again, because it's something that we can still relook at again with, you know, is it time to do it at the tennis courts versus try to make some new ground, which has to be prepped completely differently as well, on top of the base, so.
Is it the sports surface, like, is that the surface the problem, or is it just the base?
Both, probably.
Okay.
Yeah. West Concord, I think, has the sport court that they put in.
Sure.
And it's all, they have the same issues, and they've had cracking and stuff on it and whatnot. I haven't been up there this year to see how it weathered over the winter at all, but, you know, that eventually, I would guess, would be a cracking issue too, but I think it's both. And that's what it sounds like on the community forums I've seen with the pickleball courts, is that sport court material is not good.
It's not designed for pickleball. It's designed for other sports, basketball, tennis, and things like that.
because pickleball's playing with a wiffle ball.
Right, they're playing with the ball that doesn't really bounce.
Like I said, come out and play with us, see what it's about.
That old tennis court area, that thing's been around longer than some people in this room. So, it's in really bad shape. What he was saying, it's resurfacing.
Won't name names.
It was tough.
Waseca just resurfaced their tennis courts, converted them to pickleball courts. They put in 6 courts on one of their parks this year and opened it up.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, Ann, thank you. Any other comments, or anybody? Yes, don't want to shut me up.
1106 3rd Street Northeast. Is there any reason this should be presented at a city council meeting too, or no? No reason.
I think usually the park board talks about it a little bit before they make a recommendation, or there's a lot of research to do.
Yeah, I would say just hold off yet.
And then, we put in the request, now what is the next step? Do we wait for you guys to evaluate and look at the possibility?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much, because we gotta go through, we know there's, thank you for coming to the meeting and speaking your opinion. We know there's a need, the demand is getting higher, it's like having one pool instead of 2, because we have 2 up there. Now there's, why should we have a 3rd? Why should we have 2? We got 1. It all goes back to getting something in the plans, get some money built up, which sometimes is a 2, 3, or 4 year. You set aside a little bit every year, and at some point it's gonna blossom into, now we have it. So I wish we could say, we could get some plans for next year, but it goes back to an anonymous donation by somebody. If that was the case, knock on wood, hopefully somebody's listening somewhere, to put something into our parks that's gonna be usable, that's gonna be, not saying wrong, but free money for all of us to get this going faster. So, we'll talk about it again, and obviously we know there's a demand for another or 2 or 3 or 4. This just depends on where, but, if you don't hear something come next spring or summer, stop back again, push us, we'll let you kinda know where we're at. We're a recommending board to the city, and, the council, kinda makes the, where's our need, where are the funds, what's it for, so we'll...
Can we ask that as you get closer to planning, that you involve our community to help, with ideas and suggestions, and see are the ones that play it and know the sports a little more and stuff?
Well, I think that'd only be fair, yeah.
Sure.
I know that's a huge thing for the areas, that the pickleball community is involved with something planned, like courts out and stuff.
Well...
Or do you put the space between the fences and the pickleball lines, and what height should the fences be, and lights and things like that, so.
They have to run north-south.
Say that again, sorry?
Courts have to run north-south because you have setting sun and rising sun.
Okay, well...
Things like that.
So, or brighter lights at night because the old people can't see? Is that kind of where you're going with that? Gotcha.
And the lights have to come on at like 5:30 in the morning.
We'll have a switch. So, with an arrow marking.
But do you have somebody that calls around to surrounding communities and see what they've done?
I think it's just a matter of driving around, and I think, Ben and Ron before us,
What worked and what didn't, and regrets and what went well, and, because it seems like we're surrounded by pickleball in Rochester, Hayfield, Byron,
Pine Island just
Stewartville,
redid
Pine
their court
Island.
and stuff, yeah.
They're all slowly but surely jumping on this bandwagon, so,
And that's, that gets to be a question to, the councils of the cities saying, how long was this in motion to get where you are today? It may have been 4 years ago that they started planning this, or what other projects did you have or don't you have going on that are taking some of the funds that I allocated that, we got a lot of park space, a lot of land, and as we get land from business developments and saying now they all want something in it, in a housing district or housing area, what do you put there? Whether we go to East Diamond Park and put a couple pickleball courts out over there, do you add a ball field, do you add I think, Ben and Ron before that, they did a good job of contacting other communities and say what is working, because we're not using our own information, we're using everybody else's and trying to compile the best all-in-one to make it better and not be any less than another community, so, yeah, the comments, they're always in good contact with, you know, other directors of the parks to, you know, what would you do differently, but there's still, I'm sure for any pickleball court, there's guidelines regardless that should be matched, you know, that we're gonna do regardless, that we have to do to make it, not just a half-made court. So, does that kinda answer your question? Maybe. So yeah, I think, you know, there's a lot of contacts amongst the, different park and rec directors of all the communities, and what works, they pretty much do each other by first names. Nothing different than pool prices and lifeguards and how do you do it and what do you need, and so. Okay. Anybody else out there?
Yeah, we do. We play up in Brainerd quite a bit there, and actually they use their outdoor hockey rinks for pickleball in the summertime. That works fine. So I guess it gives that surface a dual purpose.
If we had an outdoor hockey rink.
Yeah.
That we
But I
flood,
mean,
that's...
yeah.
Yep, no, and that's just, you know, what do you know, jokingly, I was thinking in the back of my mind, when we drained the pool, could you put a pickleball court in the pool? Then you got the walls to where, it might be sloped a little bit on one side, but yeah, you know, what is usable and feasible in the off-seasons, just like the, you know, in the schools and the gymnasiums and stuff, so, yeah, we'll keep pushing forward on these for you, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for joining us, so.
Thank you. In the one court.
Okay.
You guys want to join us?
Let's go on to benches at Veterans
Sue,
Park.
Bill, want to join us? We're going to live court. We're going to play so I can play. Yeah. Really good.
Should we hate? I think we've, you know, just brief discussion now, they've moved off, let's go back to A. You know, I think we've felt the need for...
It's been a few years, we've been talking about it.
You know, it took 2 years to get the one up at Lions Park. And like I said, if we built one, why didn't we build two? Well, the funds weren't there.
Yep.
You know, and when they start making an Olympic event, if it is an Olympic event, but I know they've got professional tournaments 2 years ago when you got
They got break
pro
dancing.
athletes and...
Breakdancing's an Olympic event now.
I did that in college once. We won't say what was involved, but,
Well, let's move on to
let's go to benches, so obviously we'll pick up the pickleball, and, you know, we know that we feel the need and thank them, and, you know, where are our funds and where can we put more stuff, so.
But they could actually do a little bit more if they want to form a committee and start doing some fundraising.
Some fundraising and grants.
Writing and things like that, so.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the parks programming starts, like you guys said, I mean, it starts a couple of years out. I mean, it's hard for us to just jump something in there, like, we've been talking about this modular for Northeast Park for 3 years, at least, and that we've been saving funds for 3 years, so, I mean, I think realistically, you know, Ben and I have looked at a couple sites, you know, at least one potentially that might be possible. I think Lions Park is probably gonna be the one that would be the easiest, just because, like you said, I mean, if they would've had another $150,000, you could've done 4 more, or 3 more, and it would've been nice, but half that money came from the city, part of it came from the Lions, I think, or there was a fundraiser for some of it, and then some of it came from community ed, or joint ventures, so, I mean, it wasn't cheap.
No.
And drainage is an issue out there too, so I mean, if we did build a few more down there, you'd have to have drainage between them, because that is a wet area. I mean, the water table's very high, so when we dug it out, I remember when Ron was out there, I think they dug it out 1.5 foot, and that year was a wet year, they were already getting water.
Yeah.
So I mean, they had to like pack it in because it's a wet area, and the whole town's wet. That's part of the problem with the Veterans Park. That's a wet area too. It's right into a kind of a slough area, would naturally occurring slough area. It's all covered up now, but I mean, you know, the drainage there is part of the problem with the base there, is it's every winter it pops and heaves, and that's why we went with Smart Court, because the surface is never gonna be good, you know, without spending $800,000, which the council's not gonna do.
No.
You know,
No,
they
I
just
agree.
aren't, because they don't have that kind of money, you know, but I think, you know, now that they've talked to us, you know, we can certainly evaluate it, and if there could be somebody who would come up with some, you know, obviously, she said Brookings, well, they got $400,000. If somebody wants to give us $400,000, hey, pickleball sounds good with me.
Yeah, we'll put in 8 courts, or 6 courts at that point, so.
Right, anyways.
It's unfortunate that they look at adding a court, but they don't quite see to the extent that we have to go to make it feasible.
Well, I mean, it's not just, I mean, we have the softball people in, which is great, we have the baseball people in, we've had a lot of people in who, they want a new field, they want another modular, I mean, there's only so much in the budget, you know, unless the council decides they wanna do like a sales tax like Rochester. How's Rochester paying for everything? Well, they put it on the ballot, and they voted for a $65 million sales tax. I don't know if the council's there for that here, I don't know if it would generate quite enough to make it worth it for us, I wish, but I mean, it's a good project to start programming in.
Yeah, I'd be excited to add more, and I think obviously there's a need for it, it's just, it's gonna be down the road. We're not gonna be able to do that.
Down the road, and where? You know, like I said, and a good point, you know, you get that water table up, you just can't put these anywhere. They think, well, just do a surface and you're there. Okay, so in 3 years, when it all crumbles and falls apart, that wasn't it either, so it's, you know.
Well, and, you know, they have issues with the one at Lions Park, and I don't play pickleball, so I'm not gonna sit here and complain or whatever, but I think that's a nice court. At what extent is it gonna be good enough for that group? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you do the best you can. I mean, obviously, if we had more capacity, I think that's probably the number one. Like, if we had 3 more courts right there in Lions, you know, I'd be able to say, hey, you know, I think we're pretty well served right now.
Right.
But I mean, obviously, we're a little short, and I think we do that, like Greg said, going in. When I talked with Ron, if we couldn't scrape together another 50,000, we would have done it, but it wasn't there. And we were lucky we got the one we did, really.
Yeah, so, but, you know, going forward, I think obviously the demand is getting higher, and we're seeing that. It's good to see the youth trying to do it, and then, I didn't want to bring it up, but, so where does the school start involving? Where does the school start putting in courts?
Well,
How are they gonna touch that?
baseball fields and softball fields too. I mean, we know there's still one ball field short, because they got rid of it, for sure. And I talked with Ted, the new superintendent, about that, and that was the first thing I said, was that, hey, I know you guys are still one field short, because when you built a new building, that field went away. I mean, they know it, so I mean, yeah,
Yep.
that's definitely a fair point too.
So, and that's where, you know, not to bring it up to push it on somebody else's lap, but it's, you know, wasn't worth mentioning, but again, if there's a program for the school, you know, I'm sure if they built it, they'd have those available for community as well too, so. Okay. We're not gonna backtrack.
No, the only thing I was gonna add is, now that I'm coaching and seeing the youth stuff a little bit, have we ever sat down and said, here's how many football fields you have, here's how many football fields, soccer fields, pickleball fields, tennis courts, and we list it all out, and then where do we wanna go next? Do we wanna go pickleball, do you wanna go soccer, football, like, what does the school have that they can use, what do we want to add in next?
Well, I mean, we master plan Lions,
Yeah.
so I mean, that one's done. I don't know that they really master planned anything else.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, even with the master plan with Lions, as you know, Ryan, didn't have timelines on a lot of things, because the cost for a lot of that stuff was just getting water and sewer out there if we want to do a warming house or ice arena or whatever is significant. I think if we could I mean, I hate to say multi-purpose, but if there was a way to do 2 things at once, we would want to look at that too. Like, you know, we looked at, and I told you the problem with, you know, there is an outdoor ice rink, right? The problem with that is it is on county land, and it is controlled heavily by the fair board. And that was
It's a fair, yeah.
We had to take all the ice out of the ice arena, because the fair board said, hey, we want to throw, I think they had 8 booths.
It was not heavily.
It was, they used maybe a tenth of the space, but that cost $10,000, something like that, to get all the ice out, to put it back in.
Not only that, it was...
And so, I mean, I'm just afraid, like, if we're building it, we need to build it on city property.
On our
not on
control.
county. Because if we're building on somebody else, well, first we have to get permission. You know, right now, there's a hockey rink that, you know, it's been a long time, you know, county board's not barking about, neither is the fair board. We try to put something of any value on anybody else's property, and they're gonna say, oh, well, now you gotta pay us for that, or you gotta pay us to use that space. And I mean, you know, it's just kind of the way it goes.
No.
I know that in Byron, I talked to Al Roeder about it, they have a conflict between their pickleball people, because they put this on an ice rink. Well, the kids like to go out there and rollerblade, and do their, you know, they do hockey in the summer, like...
The rollerblade hockey or...
And, you know, here people find a play, now, of course, the kid's probably not being the nicest, you know, he's trying to keep rollerblading through, that was one of their council meetings, where the family came and said, well, you're taking away our place for the kids to practice playing, you know, their ice hockey, we're on the rollerblades, and at the same time, on the other hand, you got the pickleballers going, well, this teenager is rolling through our game, let's play. I mean, I don't know. You know, I think dedicated courts in a place that we control is probably the way to go, honestly.
would it be wise to look at, with the soccer fields that we have in the
Well,
Northwest?
doing an inventory, I think to Ryan's point, I mean, and that's a project maybe for this fall. As your time starts to ease up, we can go through and kind of master plan. I mean, we've kind of master planned a little bit with Northeast. You and I have talked about that with the stuff that's being added. I think the other areas of town would be something where we kind of, what we've been, historically, what Casson has done is they've rotated through. So, okay, Lions Park one year, another park the next year, Veterans Park the year after that, kind of like rotated through. That's pretty much what they've said, okay, we're not gonna spend all of our money in one park especially now that Lions is kind of at a little bit better level. And for a long time, that was not as nice of a park as it could be. It still doesn't have bathrooms, but other than that, it's a pretty nice park now. We just did the parking lot down there, we did the court. It had a couple of years ago, it had the roller, skate park or whatever.
Yep.
Northeast is kind of where the focus is money-wise next year. But, I think Northwest, we talked about making that a nicer green space. Right now, it's just a field.
Well, that's
Or-
where,
but-
if you put 2 or 4 courts out there in a corner, you're taking some soccer away, but,
And there's, parking out there is an issue too, though, because you've got street then. I mean, there's no place.
No, there's
All
not.
the places, but, it could be evaluated. You're right, I hadn't really thought of that
You
one.
just put out there, it's like, yeah, and they're gonna travel, doesn't matter if they're gonna go to Hayfield and places.
We could talk more about it. Like I said, Ben and I have talked about some other sites too, kind of like, because we do drive around. Go up to Pine Island, you can see, where they put their courts downtown, right? It's right between 2 buildings.
Sure.
So, that's something where, maybe that's something to look at. We do have some vacant space in the, and I'd love it if people could go downtown, park. If we're gonna redo that parking lot next year, downtown, the Legion's right there, if they wanna go get a drink afterwards or whatever, these folks' point, and they're all adults. That's not something that's unusual for the pickleballers, is
No,
to,
right.
go out to eat or something afterwards or beforehand or whatever, so.
Okay.
Yeah, good
Well,
stuff.
sounds very good review, Phil. All right, thanks. Let's go on to B, the benches at Veterans Park.
So obviously, benches are highly sought after up at the Veterans Park around the playground area. I don't have Facebook, so it's not as known to me as others. Is he still willing, is it Tom Munson, or is he still willing to do a donation for that, or?
I don't know if Tom was looking to do anything at Veterans Park.
Didn't you say that? He
No, the county has $2,000 that could be used for concrete.
Okay, the county does.
Yeah, county public health, it's
Okay.
SHIP, it's actually the SHIP program, but yeah.
Okay. Is that still a possibility, or?
I think if we can give them a justification, we can certainly ask them to provide that. They're the ones who came to us and said they could help with benches.
Okay.
And if we can get the benches at low cost, then we could utilize some of those funds for concrete pads.
So I got 2 benches on hand for pads this year. Potentially 2 more from the Lions group.
Is that for the recycled plastic?
Yep. The Trex benches, and we actually just added one on a pad up by Prairie Meadows. What's it, Abbey Lane, I believe it is. They had a pad up there, and Lions called me and asked about adding one, so I approached them and the people at Abbey Lane, and we put it out there, and they're happy, so.
Okay.
But Lions said they got 2 more that I can take whenever, so we could start adding benches.
I can email the folks at SHIP and see if they can, you have to give me some estimates on cost, because they're not gonna pay more than they have to.
Right. I'll get some estimates on cost for the pads, just because that's gonna be our cost.
Where would the benches be put at around Veterans Park?
We'll put them around the playground areas.
The big complaint, I think, has been from parents who wanna be able to sit and watch their kids.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
So it'd be right up next to the borders, of the edging of the playgrounds.
So not necessarily in the open spot where the planter was or anything?
Correct.
It's around usable
playground,
facility,
yes.
playground equipment right now, so.
Well, there was people during the festival wondering why that bench is sitting in the middle of the park like that, where the flower,
Maybe move
there's
that
a
one.
bench. there's
Well,
a
and
bench
unfortunately,
there.
one of those was damaged during festival. But I think it's fixable, it's not a complete loss. And then the other one is a Girl Scouts bench, I believe. I'm more than happy to move those and tear those pads out. I mean, they are out in the middle of nowhere.
They're out in the middle of nowhere, yeah.
Makes sense.
Probably the Girl Scouts was there because of the flower planter that was there. Now that that's gone, relocate a bench, so.
So
Okay.
regardless, I'd like to put 4 benches in that area. I think that's plenty. So I'll just get a cost estimate on the concrete for...
The pads have to be very deep. I mean,
They're 3 to 3.5 inches deep, thick or whatever, 4 by 8s.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
So we'll for sure be getting a few in this fall.
Good, okay. Anything else on benches? Good. Veterans Memorial update.
So I just got the pricing back for the granite on that. For the monument and the wall pieces, we're looking at roughly $109,000 for the granite, which is actually less than what I was going for. I mean, now that doesn't include everything that's gonna come with it. There was some more costs he threw in there as far as, but there are things that we were gonna do different anyway. So at the overall, with the monument in the center and then the 2 walls, we're looking at $109,000, and I figured on the high side, maybe $100,000 for the rest, you know, as far as concrete and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think I'm in that ballpark of where I wanted to be as far as where we were gonna try to be at for our memorial.
Okay.
The committee is trying, the committee's goal actually was like about $250,000 to try to collect, try and get. If nobody's ever seen, that's what it's gonna look like.
Yep, we had a booth up at Festival. John Hanson made the banner. He wants to be a part of the committee as far as helping with stuff like that. He wants to help us make a web presence, so it'd be easier for donations or for people to see, you know, that this is a legit thing, that we're not just trying to scam people or anything like that.
It was nice to have, so they had something to look at.
Yeah.
Just,
And I mean, obviously with having a little booth at the festival, it wasn't to get donations, it was just to get the word out there that this is what we're here to do, this is what we wanna do.
Does a school have a 3D printer? You know, is this something as a project, they can do a 3D print of something like this and get it on a...
I talked to Otterness.
I'm just, you know, 'cause...
I think they do have a 3D printer.
But that'd be an interesting, could they do that on a 3D, you know, a printer scale and get it onto a...
The library has a 3D printer. Yeah.
So that might be something to consider to really put outside. So, you know, 'cause this looks nice, but you still can't...
Really visualize it.
Right. So just throwing it out there if that was maybe an option to get somebody a challenge or a extra credit
we
or
did
something.
get some donations, about $55.
I put $5.
I left the jar out there overnight, you know, when I went home and everything, and I come back, there was probably another $10 that...
Yeah, there was money in that.
Right, I was really surprised.
Well, he glued the ones
Yeah,
in.
cheese curds there or something, you know.
I was really surprised that it was still there, it was like, holy cow.
So, okay, well, good. So we'll keep going forward on that Veterans Memorial, so. Casson Aquatic Center.
So, we're done for the season. We drained the pools today. For some. There's just some things that we're gonna look into. So obviously, we're gonna get the other heater looked at before we go into winter, just to see where we're gonna be at with that one. I'm sure there's gonna be repairs need to be made to the burners and stuff on that, so that we can try to prevent any issues going into the next season. Had budget meeting a couple weeks ago, talked with Tim about redoing the water slides, so long as council passes, next season we'll be refinishing the insides of the water slides, so they won't be painted or anything, but the crucial parts of them will be refinished. I think that's priority for the aquatic center. I did talk with Tim, and I was thinking about, so I know Ronnie had brought up another birthday area. it seems like every weekend we have a party sold out, so that, I mean, people are fighting for spots. I was thinking, why don't we make it open to having two parties on, dependent on size, allowing for two parties to rent the pool. Obviously, each, you know, it would have to be known to each party that, okay, you can either rent the whole facility for this much, or the parties can split the cost here.
Or knowing that they have another party next to them,
Right.
not renting the whole
I
facility.
mean, what we've ended up seeing a lot of times is that, I mean, most of the groups are smaller. I mean, you might end up with 25 people.
And that's on the high side.
And that's on the high side, like, depending on the weather, right? Depending on the weather, if it's cool or whatever, but we have enough capacity to actually have multiple groups there. Like, you could even have two groups at the same time. The pool, it shouldn't matter. You know, you rent the pool, you get to go in special, that's yours. You get your own area then, as long as you can get your own area to sit, have your cake and all that. It's not unusual, I think, in a lot of places where they'd have multiple groups renting it, you know, what you're renting is the space to sit. You know, just because you get to go swim then, I mean, everybody gets to use it, so I think...
Would that be a side-by-side space, or would it be... I think you need some separation between
Well, so we have the three areas.
Three umbrellas.
Yep. So there's, I mean, I wouldn't put the two next to each other, there'd be a umbrella in between, essentially. I mean, that's typically what we have. The one closest to the water slide is the birthday area, you know, so we could, you know, leave the middle one and then rent out the other side.
I mean, I guess that's a good point, I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, we could even look at changing configuration of the tables next year if you wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, you could even throw some tables over on the, sort of the southeast corner, because it's wide enough there, you know. You could put some over there, maybe two or three there, have some there, have some in the southwest corner of it. You could mix it up a little bit if you wanted to. That's possible anyways, you know.
Well, any way to draw more income, especially if the need's there and they're filling
Well, and
up.
I just see it's getting rented out, you know, every weekend's rented out. And if we could potentially, if, you know, as long as people are good with it, I don't see why not. If I had a birthday party for 10 people, I wouldn't mind having another 10 other kids there. I mean, I don't think that would bother me.
What do we get for one rental?
I don't even know.
Oh, I think it's
Like
$300,
300.
but less than that maybe. Yeah, and it goes by size, like, I think we've changed that so that the bigger party you have, the more you pay. Like, it's over 50 or something like that.
Because
I
it
mean,
passes.
The vast majority of the people it's under 50. I mean, there's
Okay.
very rare when you have, I mean, you have to have a lot of friends to have. I know I've read it out a couple of times, and, you know, if it's cold out, that's the other thing, is you say, I put it out to the city staff a couple of years ago, because I knew I'd have plenty of, it was like one of the kids' birthday parties, I was like, hey, city staff, if you want to come and swim free, and I think Linda and Mark showed up, and maybe Kathy Plata showed up, no, yeah.
Well, it's because you didn't say you're making brats or anything like that.
Nobody wants a free hot dog either. So, I mean, I think that we could, I mean, because that pool is what's the max cap? 350, 400?
I would say.
So, I mean, you're not gonna even, it's not, and part of it, we're staffing at 7 lifeguards. So,
Sure.
I mean, it's not like we don't have, I mean, if you got the same number of lifeguards as you do kids in the pool, it's hard to see that.
We were a 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Our kid ratio at my sister's kid's birthday. It was a 6th grade rating.
Yeah.
I just think there's an option to maybe make it more beneficial for.
Well, I think, you know, if we can get more groups in there, we might even look at the price a little bit. You know, that'd be the nice thing, is we can look
Well,
at
if
the
they're willing to
price.
pay the price, it's even better.
Well, that's
You're,
Right.
you know, don't cut ourselves short. I just, because at 300, that's, you know, well, based on today's prices, probably right in the ball, $300 versus
Well, we
$300.
were losing money on those, 4 years ago, we were losing money every time we had a party. Like, actually, I just sat down with Ron, I said, Ron, every time you're fully staffed, you're losing money on this party. Well, he looked at it and was like, we're losing money every time we have a party. It's like, why are we doing pool parties if we're losing money every time we do a pool party? You have to at least break even, otherwise.
And that's where dollar-wise and wherever we sit. But, yeah, you know, if you get two spaces and you got some, you know, something between them separating them, because you envision the Hatfields and the McCoys or something.
Yeah, right.
Coming up. So, okay.
Oh, I think that's interesting.
But,
Good idea. Yeah.
Pine Island used to do evening parties, and at least in June and July, when it's light later, maybe that's an option to have a 8 o'clock party. They used to be 8:30 to 10:30, but they had lighting enough to actually use a pool. I don't know that we have lighting to actually use a pool.
We have pretty substantial lighting up there. I just don't know if I want to.
Staffing to,
staff that late, kids up that late, Most parents gonna want their kids home.
I don't know if I wanna change our hours of free swim and stuff like that quite yet. You know, where Saturday mornings are already dedicated to parties and stuff like that.
I mean, you know, it's something we can maybe
It's
do
an
a
option
community
to-
survey or something and see if people are interested.
Well, and I can always talk to like the staff and be like, okay, so how busy are we from these, you know, these evening hours from here to here? You know, and then it's an option that we have to have another hour or two to rent out.
Okay, well, something for review. Okay. Anything else on the, Robert?
Other thing is, one of the assistant managers did approach me about, applying for the manager position, so.
good.
That makes me feel a little better. Ultimately, my opinion is I'd like to see, an older adult or a teacher be a manager, and me and Tim have kind of talked possibilities of making that happen. Now that's probably not gonna happen quite next year, but, I was just glad to see that someone's interested, and he's a good candidate, so.
What age is he?
He's in college,
Okay.
so. That's all I really got for the.
Okay. Well, we'll keep that,
And we'll get numbers for next meeting.
sure. Okay, anything else on new business? Okay, let's move to old business on Northeast Park modular.
So, I only printed off the one copy, but, pending on approval from council, that would be a close estimate of what would be at Northeast Park. It's a set of swings and a 2 through 12 modular, and then there's some freestanding pieces with that. And I put the costs on there. We're looking to shoot for about 80,000 for the entire project. And that 80,000 includes,
Is that the 913 and
Yep.
65?
that 80,000 includes the, Bird Company installing it. Now pending on what happens this year, my guys are more than capable of putting a modular in, so.
That includes mulch.
Yep. The border and the mulch, yep. Yep.
Did we decide a final location for that?
Yep, it's gonna be right in that triangular wasted space.
Yeah.
Yep. And I reached out to their company and talked about, is fencing necessary, and they said no. Not with the boulevard, the sidewalk, and then the boulevard as a buffer zone.
I actually was over at the library, and that's the same case there. It's almost the same distance.
Yep.
Where that park is there between where that borders and then because if you add the sidewalk and then the boulevard, you've got all things.
And she's, you know, they're really good, those playground companies are really good about sending you the law over, you know, via email or whatever, and so, I mean, we wouldn't have to add one.
Okay.
So pending approval, that'll be our major project.
And that's for this fall? No.
Not
that'll be
this fall, no.
Next year's,
Next year's.
yep,
Next year's budget.
to get our budget, to get it in.
We were looking at potentially ordering it this fall.
If possible, yeah, and they're like, what'd I say, 6-week time frame on getting it ordered,
This will come to council.
next week.
No, probably not.
Oh, no?
I think, because I can see some people on council wondering how much the new heater would cost
Sure.
versus how much.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, right now, he's scheduled to present on the 11th for our budget meeting. But he's gonna come, and actually, he'll probably talk about a lot of these things during his presentation, I would imagine, so.
Yeah. So they'll ask questions.
We'll have a long enough meeting next week, without that added on there.
On both sides of that park, would there be place for future benching slabs?
Yeah, yep.
Yep, because they're gonna wanna sit around that too.
Yeah, yep,
That might be a park to focus on for Earth Day, planting some trees too around there.
yeah.
And I could see maybe on the street side, just because if people want to put more attention to supervising their kids from getting to the street if they're sitting on that. street,
Right.
like
you're thinking street facing in then?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And so much baseball games.
yeah, I mean, the problem with benches, and I think it's interesting, but I've seen, you know, because I take my kid over, a lot of times, unfortunately, people sit on the bench and they are not watching their kid, because first thing they do is whip out their phone. And it's like, when you have to stand, it's not, as you know, you're watching more because you're following your kid around, you know, and I mean, but I hear you, if you're facing in at least, that way it's hopefully kind of almost a screen kind of a thing.
Kind of like a buffer.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Anything else on that at this point?
Nope.
Move on to, dog park.
So, the last meeting we had a gentleman come in asking about a dog park. As of now, it's not a feasible option. I mean, I'm willing to look into that in the future, but I just kinda called American Fence and did an estimate on just the fencing alone for it to be similar to, I don't know if any of you have been up to the Manorville one. They kinda have two different, so the bigger side, I just did an estimate on that fencing. We're looking at, on the high side, 20,000. So, just to put that into perspective as far as what would go into a dog park.
Half of a pickleball court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and
More interest in a pickleball court.
Half of one pickleball court.
Tim has helped me kind of realize on some of the needs and wants as far as, you know, how many people are approaching you about a certain situation. And I'm not saying this isn't gonna be needed down the road in the future. I think in that area is a great location as far as with having the, apartments over there. But I think as of now, it's gonna kinda get tabled for now.
We do have some sites.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, that is something that, like, down the line, I mean, once again, all about our programming dollars.
Mhm.
Like, you know, that one's not a huge one, but then, of course, if you're gonna do $20,000 in fence, how much else is it gonna cost? You've gotta put the water fountain in for the dogs, which is the special one, that's $7,000 or $8,000, and then, you know, so unfortunately, I wish we had, like you said, the benefactor, you know, was just gonna send money tree down, you know, or whatever, but,
Yep.
but I mean, so we do have some sites for that, actually, it works out pretty well. I mean, that's one we could do realistically.
But it's kind of that order of importance, you know, not that they're all important, this is, I don't want to say it wrong, but, yeah, where do you invest your dollars for the bang for your buck, and, you know, lots of places you can walk your dog, but not necessarily dogs meet up with another dog. So, and then...
Yeah, I'm excited because we do have some sites, so I mean, it's not like this is not impossible to do. You know, if there was some, you know, if we could get a grant or something, that would be something that we could do then, you know.
Yeah, like I said, somebody said, here's 25 grand, put up the fence.
Right.
Okay, let's get a water fountain, let's go, you know, but that's, you know...
Mr. Bell was a veteran, did he ever look into like any grants from any veterans programs for something like that? I assume they have a lot of service dogs, I don't know if there was...
He didn't bring anything up at the time, no.
I don't know if you have a follow-up conversation, I'll maybe ask him that.
Okay, 'cause I got his contact information, I just...
Maybe let them know if you know, identified location too, if you haven't already, and then basically it's just a matter of we have to get funding for it, so.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the dog park? Any correspondence? I mean, we get to go home before 7?
No, not quite.
It's just a little after.
So, well, it was good to hear from the pickleballers, and when I pulled up and saw a full parking lot, I had to tell them that all the cars out there were for sale, so I had to...
What was going on?
Well, it just shows that there is a great need for it.
Yep, and I think it's gonna get greater, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Wait till badminton court starts getting thrown in the
Well,
mix.
that's just kinda why I brought up the whole North Park thing, because I hate... It's nice to be able to utilize a tennis court into a pickleball court, and if we could've made that more suitable...
Well, I mean, we do get a ton of use up there for casual players. You know, it's not designed for pickleball, obviously, but I mean, you just go up there and sit up there, and I mean, I go up to Cool Off enough, there's a lot of people who are using that court. I'm actually pretty happy with the utilization, because we took something that was completely unusable and made it into something...
Made it to where now you can get something that-
we use, and it's fine for tennis, and, you know, a lot of people are up there using it, but it's not for a group that's very, you know, they're playing 4 or 5 times a week.
Right.
I mean, I don't
They're-
think it's good
yeah.
exercise, believe me, I respect that, but I mean, they're wanting something that's on...
They want
the high
something,
end
yep.
for, you know, usage. That's fair, it's just a
Yep.
matter of that court is probably not gonna work for that, that's not what it's designed for, so.
Anybody have a next meeting date? Before we, make a motion to adjourn,
We're looking at the 17th of September.
September?
We may have numbers from the Casson Acquire Center, we may have that in October, just so you're aware. That's typically when we've done in October, so we'll see, depending on how everything goes with the downloads of all the data and stuff, so.
Okay.
Might be able to get some numbers.
Yeah, right.
Okay. All right, if there's nothing else, I need a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All the same sign, motion carried.
You guys all caught up with your budget talks and everything.
Thanks.
We all caught up with your budget talks.
Record all night.
All the departments, council